In this podcast, listener questions on how to heal from lower back pain and hip pain, and how to recover like a beast, various recovery methods, including lifestyle changes, movement training, what to eat, how to reduce inflammation, how to use compression, and what to do about edema. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today is episode 9 of the Structural Performance Podcast. My name is Manny Aragon, and I am the founder of the Rolf Workshop Center for Structural Performance. And today we've got some cool things going on. It's a little different format from last week, but we're going to start out actually with a question from a listener. And the question is, and this is a person with a very particular health challenge, and they are also a professional athlete. So this is kind of pertinent to any of the athletes out there, folks who are training on a regular basis, endurance athletes, hardcore athletes, people who are really spending time out there and trying to pushing their body to the limits and trying to figure out how to improve to get more improvement than they're getting right now. So the question is, my ankles and feet swell up after a hard training session or a race, and I get hip and low back pain. What can I do to recover better before the next workout? Well, that's a great question, and there's a bunch of different things in that. So we'll pull them apart, but before we go there, let's talk a little bit about how this would apply for this person, and then also for the general masses out there who might have more of a, so there's a couple different scenarios. There's the, I have an acute injury scenario, or I might have an acute injury scenario, or I have a chronic injury that is not so serious that it's taking me out of action, but that it's bugging me on a regular basis, like a niggle, an ache, a pain, a joint that isn't as flexible as you'd like, or, a bad knee or things like that, back pain on a regular basis, those types of things. So there's a couple different scenarios there. And then the third scenario is recovery from regular exercise. This would be, if you're in endurance sports, it's going to be a combination of endurance type training along with high intensity type training. So for those people who are more, say, high intensity oriented, then this will also work, but the endurance / high intensity athlete is going to actually be stressing their body more in different ways than, say, just the high intensity or short distance athlete. So there's a slightly different mix of how you would apply these, but the general principles are the same. So first off, let's go back to this injury. So it really depends on the type of injury that you have. So like I just kind of talked about, there's 3 different scenarios that I can think of right now. If you have a very acute type of injury, oftentimes there's going to be, if it's really acute, like a compound fracture or something like that, you're going to need probably surgical intervention, probably medical intervention. So those types of injuries, let's just say that you're going to go call 911 or go to your doctor or surgeon or whatever, get that thing resolved, and then you can start to use the strategies that we're talking about, that we're going to talk about as we go on in this podcast. The other thing is, if this is an injury that's acute that you have some lead time up to the point of surgery or medical intervention that you know about, then you can follow the protocol that we're going to talk about, the types of things that we're going to talk about throughout the podcast to better prepare yourself before and after whatever the medical intervention is, whether it's a surgical event or most likely usually that's the case if it's a torn muscle or a ACL surgery or something like that. You might have a serious back issue, surgery, joint replacement, all kinds of things like that, broken bones. So before and after. And ideally, you're doing this in regular training so your body is responding most favorably. And then if you get into acute injury, say you get hit by a car, you're on a bike, or, whatever, break a bone, like I said before, you can tear a muscle. Your body will be much more responsive when you go into that medical resolution and then recover faster using these. So this is all types of recovery. It's not just exercise recovery, because exercise recovery really is injury recovery. Exercise injures your body. High-intensity exercise and weight training injures your body more acutely than, say, endurance training, which would be more of there'd be different types of, say, a lower level of muscular injury and joint injury, but higher level of cortisol production and then inflammatory cascade, which would lead to longer-term degradation. So, these things all kind of overlap in some sense or another. But, again, we'll talk about strategies. These are things you can be doing on a regular basis to improve your recovery time, to improve your healing time, and ultimately to be able to allow you to train harder so that you can get faster and stronger. Alrighty? So, now, if you have, we'll just throw out here, if you have like a chronic type of injury, that is a repetitive stress injury, or, something that's kind of crept up on you over time, oftentimes, or if you have a history of acute injuries that have been repaired and or trauma, I don't want to even say oftentimes, pretty much all the time. If you've had one of those situations occur, you are going to want to look at your movement patterns, your patterns of movement, your muscular imbalances, your musculoskeletal tensional imbalances, and the asymmetries that are in your body, that you'll have structural as well as functional asymmetries. So those things are a must, and you can do all the other stuff that I'm going to talk about, and it'll help. But if you don't address your structural asymmetries and your functional asymmetries, you're going to re-injure yourself eventually. So whether it's now, whether it's when you're 60 or 65 or 70, point is, the whole idea of where I am trying to lead people to is a lifetime of active, injury-free activity. And then if you happen to get injured, how to get out of it. So let's talk about general items and practices that can speed up recovery from exercise and chronic and or minor injury. So we'll go down the list. And a lot of things you've probably heard before, but I'm going to go over this again because in some of them maybe you haven't, or perhaps I've said it in a different way. So today might be the day that what I say kind of like makes sense. Great. That's the essence of learning and maturing over time, is that sometimes you hear things 100,000 times, and it's the 101,000th time that you go, oh, the light bulb turns on, and it means something to you that's useful. Great. Awesome. So let this be that time. If not, hopefully next time. So we'll go down the list. Cold therapy. Huge. Post-exercise cold therapy. Pre-exercise cold therapy. I personally don't even turn on the heat in the shower anymore. I take cold showers 100% of the time. I don't do it at the end. I started it that way. Now I take cold showers. Now, to put it in perspective, I'm in Southern California. The water doesn't get that cold, but it's better than nothing, so I do it. Not only that, I don't have to waste water while I wait for the water to heat up. So my body's become accustomed to that. Now I've actually made a commitment for this year when I swim in the ocean, which I'm nearby. So I swim in the ocean, usually 1 to 2 times a week. Ideally, it's more than that, but for logistical purposes, it's 1 to 2 times a week. And I've committed to this winter swimming without a wetsuit. Now, if I'm racing, I'll probably wear a wetsuit just because, I'm going to really be looking at how can I maximize my time. But during the winter, I'm committing to swimming without a wetsuit. If that requires me to swim a shorter distance or a shorter time in the water, that's fine. But I'm committed to swimming without a wetsuit. Why? Because the ocean temperature is going to drop, and it's going to help expose my body to the cold. Now, there are other things. Whole body ice baths, partial body ice baths, cold rivers, unheated pools, lakes, the ocean. Obviously, if you're not in like a hot ocean area like Florida or Hawaii. Even so, the ocean is healing in many other ways and grounding, so it's good for healing in general. But the cold ocean is even better. Cold showers, whole body cryotherapy, and all of these, what they do is to some degree, the colder the better, but to some degree, they stimulate a healing response in your body. They stimulate really a cascade of anti-inflammatory and healing hormonal responses that allow your body to, they stimulate basically what we would term a healing crisis. So your body thinks you're in deep trouble when you're in severe cold, and you are, except that you're in that, you're in control of how long you're going to be in that. So bumps up your metabolism, kicks out the healing hormones, which help heal your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, your organs, all these different things. There's so many positive responses from that. So regular practice obviously is best. So, I honestly don't take a shower every day, but probably every other day at minimum, sometimes every day. And I try and, I don't try, I just don't even turn on the hot water. Okay, here's another one. I talked about this last week. Beetroot juice. Beetroot juice rocks for so many reasons. I have a very expensive supplement that I sell, which is very, very effective, and I'm currently evaluating it against the effectiveness of beetroot juice. And that product is OxyPower. It's a mix of Chinese herbs, Romani, I don't remember the second herb, but there's basically 2 herbs in it. And it, on 5 different levels, improves your oxygen uptake and utilization efficiency, basically, your ability to carry oxygen on so many different levels. So beetroot juice does very, very similar things. And because of the way it acts, and I don't know if all of this information was in there last week, but for recovery specifically, it's got an anti-inflammatory cascade, again, associated with it. So beetroot juice is a very good anti-inflammatory, not to mention that it improves your endurance, not to mention so that's time to exhaustion, as well as improving the over time as you use it regularly, the density of your mitochondria and your mitochondrial efficiency. Now, for those of you who don't know, mitochondria are basically the powerhouses of the cells. They're in every cell of your body. And the density of, in other words, the number of mitochondria, the more there are, the more energy you're going to be able to produce. And so the more endurance you're going to have, the easier it's going to be for your body to produce a particular power output over a period of time. So that's super positive. The added benefits of beetroot juice is that it contains a lot of nitric oxide, which helps to nourish the endothelial tissues, which are like the tissues that line the blood vessels and basically line all of the cavities of the body and the different glands and such. So it's great for that. It's also great for your cardiovascular system, good for your heart. It's also excellent for your liver because it helps you to keep the bile flowing, as we talked about last week. Good for your digestion and absorption because of that. Also good for keeping your liver functionality high. When your liver is, when the bile is flowing smoothly, the liver is not congested and it's able to better handle the myriad tasks it has. The liver, accomplishes more or tackles more tasks than any other organ in the body, and it's a very busy organ. So anything we can do to ease the load on the liver and make it more efficient is going to make your whole body operate more efficiently. Now, simply freeing up liver functionality and the load on the liver will also improve your energy storage and your endurance. So this is another thing that's, there's like layers and layers of this. But anyway, thereby, your liver, as we mentioned before last week, makes all of your hormones. So it's instrumental to the process of healing. It regulates blood fats, blood sugar, all kinds of different things. So now, removes toxins. Okay, so the third thing that you can do, and this is a huge one. This is a totally, totally overlooked one. Massive, I would say. Especially the longer distance that athletes are training for, the less they pay attention to recovery. Because unless you're a professional athlete or you're a dilettante, you don't have anything else to do in life besides train and recover, the likelihood that you're recovering well is low, because you're going to be squeezing your workouts in amongst the, picking up of children and the work, if you have a job or your business, and you're going to be juggling that much more in your life, which basically produces an anti-healing effect. So rebalancing the nervous system, when I talk about that, I'm really talking about calming your nervous system, balancing your nervous system so that you are not as much in sympathetic and dominant mode. Now, there's a sympathetic and parasympathetic portion of the nervous system in terms of the nervous system tonicity. That's maybe a term that I use. I don't know if others use that, but it's a way of thinking about the nervous system. And when we're in fight or flight response, i.e. when we're under any kind of stress, whether it be from emotional stress, like running around from place to place, worrying about bills, worrying about the fact that we weren't able to do all the training that's on our training schedule, and our coach is going to be unhappy, and we're not going to meet the time that we wanted to meet for the Ironman, and all these different things. I don't have any food in the fridge, and what am I going to eat? All these things. So there's that emotional stress, the stress that we euphemistically refer to when we talk about stress. Then there is chemical stress, so the chemicals in the environment, the personal care products, all that stuff that our body has to purify out and deal with. That's another type of stress. It places a load on the body and demand on the body and the liver in particular. A third type of stress is going to be food stress. So these are foods that you eat that require a lot of energy either to digest or produce a immune response in your body because you have a sensitivity to them. Whether it's a small immune response or a large immune response, they can produce an immune response, and chronic use of that and chronic immune response is going to result in chronic inflammation and cortisol production. So that's the third type of stress. And there is physical stress, so just the training itself is a physical stressor on our body, and our body has to deal with that. And recover, obviously. And then, I'm blanking on the fifth type of stress that I'm gonna remember in a minute, but there's basically 5 types of different types of stress that we experience. And we're not going to, if we're training for an Ironman, we're not really going to be able to minimize the physical stress if we're using a minimalist training plan. If we're not, then let's minimize that, use a minimalist training plan so that we're mixing both high intensity and endurance training and producing the maximum possible effect in our body. Now, that goes for the amateur athlete. If you're a professional athlete and you can eliminate life stress, then, you're going to train a little differently. You've probably got a specialized team just working on that alone. But for the kind of typical amateur endurance athlete, you're going to be really not minimizing life stress as much, perhaps the way you deal with it, but you can reduce training stress, you can reduce food stress, you can reduce chemical stress, and then you can help to rebalance your nervous system, which will help to minimize the effects from the stressors on your body by bringing your body back to balance. So when your body's out of balance, when you are experiencing all these stressors, you are in fight or flight syndrome, or fight or flight response, and your body literally, its healing capacity is diminished, if not turned off. Your digestion as well, and so on and so forth. So if you're trying to heal from an injury and or training, you want to be able to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system or dial it up as you dial down the sympathetic nervous system. And when those two are in balance, you have all of the best of both worlds. You're alert, you can think well, but you also can heal, and you feel calm and centered, so you can make good decisions. So what are some of the things that that I use and I recommend to my clients for rebalancing the nervous system? And there are a bunch of them out there, and I say find one that works well for you. But I'll mention the ones that work well for me. There are ones that will work. Some require time, some require money, and usually a combination of both is the best. Works best for people, I've found. So, really obvious one here, restorative yoga. And when I say restorative yoga, I don't mean going to a Bikram class, where you're under heat stress and you're working as hard as you can, or an Ashtanga class where you're, working through and you're getting a really good workout, or any kind of vinyasa. I'm talking about restorative yoga, boring yoga, one that makes you calm down. One that makes you, at the end of class, go outside and not feel like talking to anybody, but just feeling very centered and calm and content. That is a restorative type of yoga. You can buy CDs for that. I'll see if I can pull up a link for a CD for that. And that yoga can be a type of it will definitely, restorative yoga will stimulate that, a good restorative yoga class. So you can go to a local class, you can develop your own practice, which is what I suggest, or do a DVD or something like that. Now, meditation is another one that comes up. What I recommend for meditation, though, is to do a seated or lying meditation so that you're removing the physical stress in your body, because sitting meditation can be quite stressful. Because the pain of sitting itself can put the stress on your body, and then kind of like negate the effects of what you're trying to do with meditation. So don't be trying to learn meditation. Do a lying or sitting meditation. If you're new to it, buy a DVD or probably a CD so you can listen to it, or some kind of MP3, or you put on the headphones, you meditate, and oftentimes a guided meditation is a great way to start. If you are adept at meditation already, then use that. Use that, whatever form that works for you. But that could be a great practice. If you're starting from nothing, whichever one of these resonates for you, if you can pick one of all the things that I'm going to list here and do that. And I'll have them listed out on the show notes, so go ahead and scroll down. Another one would be sleep. Make sure you're getting sufficient sleep. Now, I'm not advocating sleep all the time, but if you're tired, sleep. If you feel sleepy, sleep. Sleep has so many added benefits. Now, let's start out by saying every night you should be sleeping 7 to 9 hours. If you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours minimum, then you need to work on your sleep. Impacting your sleep and reducing your sleep so that you can train for an Ironman is burning the candle at both ends. One, you will wear your body down so that by the time you're racing, you're not going to be at your best, although you may have improved. Two, it won't last. You can't do that forever because you're literally burning the candle at both ends. And your body will eventually start to fall apart as your adrenals tire and the inflammation becomes chronic and starts impacting the health and integrity of your tissues and so on. Your hormones are going to be shot. I mean, there'll be a lot of things that can happen from that. See, I don't recommend it at all. Sleep. So for men, get to bed latest at 10:30 at night, and for women, the latest would be 11. but you want to be in deep stage 4 REM sleep between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. And that's when you're going to get your growth hormone, your best growth hormone excretion, and that's going to help you heal. Sleep is going to help keep your nervous system balanced. It's going to help your mind reset so you can think more clearly. It's good for your metabolism. There's so many good things about sleep. All of these things really are, but sleep is kind of the top on the list. You got to sleep. Another great one is Tai Chi or Qigong. Now, if you've got a great local practitioner, do that. If you don't have a great local practitioner, there are DVDs you can buy. I will link out to a DVD, and so that you can go to that. I'll see what I can find. If I'm able to find someone who I think I have a couple of people that I either know personally or have experienced and been a student of, so I can speak, to those if you want to buy a DVD or a CD for that. The next one would be calming herbs and or food concentrates. So these are things that will calm your nervous system and bring you more towards center. So what are some herbs? Some people take valerian to calm down. I use magnesium. Magnesium is great also if you're exercising. There are if you're feeling like you're having trouble getting to sleep and you're kind of worked up at night, there is a supplement called Paraplex, which will help bring your nervous system back to balance. But for most of these, I would generally say to consult, purchase consultation. They can be very, very, very effective, and especially when used in concert with some of these other ones that I list here. And then you can get, like additive or multiplicative effectiveness. Another great one would be body work, like, for example, massage, Reiki, or structural integration. I mean, there are too many to list, but those are just three. Craniosacral, if you're really stressed out. It's just pranic healing is another really good one. If you have all of these, obviously, the caveat is you have a properly trained practitioner, somebody who you trust, so that you can actually get the results that you're trying to get. Somebody who is actually had proper training, has certifications and all that. And then another one that I've experienced recently and really, really found to be effective is tone therapy. And this is a little more involved process, but tone therapy essentially, I believe, and I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it basically helps modulate your brain waves, your brain frequency, and thereby your nervous system. And the idea there is if there's not a standard set of tones, you basically, these are personalized tone medleys, so to speak, for very particular imbalances that you might have. So you go to a practitioner, they take a voice recording of you speaking, so they get they run it through an algorithm, they do some follow-up work, and then they come and test certain tones. And you kind of try them on, so to speak. So like you might get, 10 or 12 or 14 tones, and then those actually get uploaded into a tone generator. You put on headphones and then you listen to the tone several times a day. You take the tone generator home with you, you either rent it or you buy it. It's a little more involved, but it works like magic. It's really amazing. It's one of the most effective things that I've encountered for, and probably actually, if you're talking about doing this regularly, it's probably cheaper than going to a regular Tai Chi class over time. It's probably cheaper. Well, it's definitely cheaper than getting regular body work or massage. Meditation can be free once you buy a CD or DVD. Yoga, if you're doing a DVD, it can be free as well, or have your own practice. Sleep, obviously, is free unless you're taking a bunch of supplements to get to sleep. Tai Chi or Qigong, if you've got a DVD, again, and it's producing the desired effect. This doesn't mean you're going to be a good martial artist. It just means that this, are you able to calm down and feel more centered and focused after this? That's really what you're shooting for. So tone therapy, I'll put a link in there for that for the practitioner that I've been seeing, who's actually a colleague of mine in my office. Again, this has just been just like a wonderful little find, super effective. Okay, so the next thing down the list is healing foods like bone broths and tendon broths. If you're going to make bone broth and you've got, say, a muscular or tendon issue or injury, throw in some meat, throw in some tendon as well, so you'll get the raw ingredients. Really cook those low and slow over time. There's a great link. Weston A. Price Foundation has a great little tutorial on bone broth, so I'll put that in there. There's in the show notes. You can have a link to that. But the idea here is you're really trying to get raw materials for your body to be able to do the healing that it knows how to do once you've activated your healing capacity. So obviously there are various supplements that one can take for healing as well. Again, I'm hesitant to just recommend supplements because I tend to personalize those, with the exception of, say, beetroot or a couple of others that I've mentioned in the past. But particularly for healing, there are some general ones, but, if you've got an injury, my suggestion would be, shoot me a contact form, purchase a consultation, and, we'll take it from there. If you just have a broad question, you can put me on my contact form. If you've got a very specific question that you want a very specific protocol for, you're really going to want to purchase a consultation. If you're not sure, send me a contact form. The link, just hit the contact form link on my page, and shoot me a form, and I'll let you know where to go from there. So another great one. Compression. And compression, we think of compression as during or after exercise, and it can be. But, for example, when I was talking to maybe it wasn't talking to you, but I saw something recently from Ben Greenfield, and he talked about, recovery lifestyle. So he's training hard, and then he is also using recovery techniques all the time. One of the things that he does is he basically wears compression pants all day because he's not sitting, he's using a standing desk. So that puts some strain on his legs and such, and the compression pants help to regulate the buildup of fluid and the exchange of fluids in his extremities, which, if you're running or biking or, even swimming, any of those endurance sports or doing weight training, whatever, you're going to be using your legs and putting some strain and causing some damage in there. So, the inflammation response is going to be part of the healing response. And you want that for, recovery, but you don't want chronic inflammation in there or edema, collection of fluids. So help your body out, help your tissues, help your kidneys, help your heart, which I'll talk more about, out by wearing compression. So you can wear compression pants, compression socks, compression sleeves, and right now I'm talking about for recovery. There are medical grade, if you've got a challenge but I would try the sports ones first, since most of you are probably athletes, and then because they could be probably more useful than the medical grade ones, which tend to be tighter, a little more restrictive. So those are great. I'll just link out to Amazon for those because I don't carry them, but those can be really good. When you start to layer some of these, calming your nervous system using beetroot juice or, regular anti-inflammatories that are non-pharmaceutical, because the pharmaceutical ones are going to be taxing your liver and causing some long-term problems. So you want to stay away from using Aleve, Advil, or the narcotics on a regular basis. For narcotics, obviously, for obvious reasons, the NSAIDs because they're not designed for chronic use. They're designed for intermittent use. And when you use them chronically, you are stressing your body chemically, and so you're taking yourself out of healing mode. Okay, but periodic use is okay, I suppose. I try not to use them at all. NSAIDs really aren't that powerful. You can't really. It's not like you're going to get that much of you're not going to get any improved effect with NSAIDs as you are over using of the foods and the natural methods. That said, unless you're using, super strength or things like that, and if you are, well then, you probably got a more acute injury, and you shouldn't be taking extra strength NSAIDs all the time, because those are you're masking the problem, probably causing more damage to yourself. Okay, so but there's plenty of herbs that you can take for anti-inflammatory. Like I said, the regular eating of ginger and turmeric is great. I've got a fabulous, super concentrated and additive supplement stack that I use for inflammation in particular, called Tumero and Resvero. That is just phenomenal. Works really well. Boswellia and Boswellia complex from MediHerb is a very, very effective anti-inflammatory, and it's natural. Oxypower, like I mentioned earlier. There are plenty of others out there. But, the beetroot juice. It's easier often if you pick one to use regularly. If you're using, you can get the additive effects from the beetroot juice and or the Oxypower, where you're going to get the metabolic improvements and the oxygen use efficiency and mitochondrial density improvements over time. So either one of those are really good. They do cost a little bit of money. Oxypower is on my website. I'll provide a link to a beetroot supplement. You can juice beets on your own, but I'll provide a link for the supplement too that you can take. There's plenty of them out there. I came across one recently, Beet Light, that I've been playing with, and so I'll link out to that. Another thing, so let's go back to the last thing here. So focus, strength, and conditioning. And we talked a little bit about if you've got, pretty much everybody out there has got body or structural asymmetry. And pretty much everybody out there, because of their structural asymmetry, has muscular imbalances, and they're going to have efficiency losses, and they're going to have propensity for certain types of musculoskeletal injuries because of that. So, the typical regimen would say focus, strength, and conditioning exercises, and that's great. That's great. Strength and conditioning is great, but it's not the end-all, be-all. So what I would say is a combination of functional strength and conditioning, functional movement retraining, and neuromuscular repatterning training. So the neuromuscular repatterning is more of a movement-specific training, whereas functional movement retraining would be retraining in the most basic functional movements like walking, like sitting, like running, those types of things. This is something that takes a lot of attention. It takes time, but over time, and I'm assuming that if you're an athlete, you're going to be doing this for your life. So over time, you will reap the benefits of this, not only through improved efficiency in movement, but through lowered incidence of, first of all, muscle loss as you age, and strength loss, osteoporosis, and that whole cascade, but also fewer injuries over time. And this is, in endurance sports, number one reason why people leave the sport is because of the sports are because of injury as they age. They're simply wearing their bodies down, producing too much stress and not recovering enough. Eventually their bodies start to fall apart. So if you look at, say, in triathlon, you look at the age groups, the biggest age groups are 35, 39, and 40 to 44. 45 to 49 is a little bit smaller. 50 to 54 is a bit smaller. 55 to 59 starts to really fall off a cliff. And then 60 to 64, like if you're still there, you're probably on the podium regularly. But there's no reason why you couldn't be there if you're taking care of your body. So if you're not, then you're going to injure out like the majority of people. Or you can be the outlier, your choice. So those are 6 different methods you can use. They'll all be in the show notes. For if you want to get a little more clear on what I mean by focused strength and conditioning, functional movement retraining, and neuromuscular repatterning training, I will likely be writing articles and or putting out videos / podcasts and things on that specific topic, how you integrate those, what things work. I'll mention a couple a little later as we go on. But let's get back to the question. So the question from the listener was, my ankles and feet swell up after a hard training session or race, and I get hip and low back pain. What can I do to recover better before the next workout? So, in other words, how can I get rid of the pain and feel better and also perform, at a higher level? Now, there's a couple different things probably going on with this person. Some of it's accumulation of injuries, some of it is movement compensations from traumatic injuries. I happen to know, this because this is a client. Okay, but let's start out. What to do about the edema, the swelling, the kind of like chronic swelling? What do you do about edema? Well, let's look first of all why edema is there. Now, if you've got a traumatic injury, edema is there. It's localized inflammation. It's there to help you heal. Okay, but you don't want it to stay. Once you get the area swelled up, it's very difficult to keep the fluids in there moving and bringing in the healing, molecules and getting rid of the waste molecules, helping you to heal. So what tends to happen a lot of times is if you've got edema is that, an area will swell up. Say you hurt your ankle, the area swells up, and then it takes a long time for the swelling to go down. And when it's swelled up, there's more pressure in there. It's harder. It becomes like a swamp or a backwater where stuff's just moving slowly, but you're really not getting things in and out of there. And this is where compression can really help. But what is edema? So if you're getting chronic edema, especially in the lower extremities, you're basically accumulating lymph. You're accumulating fluid. And when it's worse in the evenings, it's a sign that your heart and your kidneys and your blood vessels aren't working as well as they should be. So the blood vessel integrity isn't there. It's allowing fluid to leak through. The kidneys aren't regulating the fluid, the volume of fluid in your bloodstream as well as they should. So there's more fluid in there than should be. And your heart is not moving things quickly enough through the area so that you are, again, accumulating fluid. So it's kind of like that triple combination comes together often. You often see heart, kidney, and cardiovascular all as part of the same type of problems, and luckily you can address them together as well. So when they're functioning properly, we get the fluids moving through the body, so compression can be an answer to that, and then you're going to start looking at how do you get better integrity of your blood vessels. Well, one thing that helps with that is the beetroot juice. And then there are other supplements I've mentioned in the past. OxyPower is a great one. Beetroot juice, Vein Light is another good one. Asparagus extract and kidney chi. All of those help to move. You use them in combination, basically 3 or 4 of those, usually at a time. They're not cheap, but if you've got a problem like that, that actually is that's going to develop over time. This isn't a younger person. They're in their early 20s. So you see this usually fluid retention in older people. So you see it in a young person, it's only going to get worse over time, and that's not really what you want. Nobody who has fluid retention appreciates and enjoys it. It causes a lot of different problems. So again, if you've got that type of thing, and you're using compression, and that's kind of like a stopgap, it'll help, but it's not going to solve the tissue integrity issues and the functional issues in the heart and kidneys and blood vessels. So when your body is healthy, those problems don't exist. When your body can heal itself and you have the proper raw materials or genuine replacement parts or foods, then your body can do that. So my suggestion is, if that's a long-term issue for you, that you shoot me a contact form and or buy a consultation, and we'll take it from there. That is a process of getting your body to operate properly. It's not a cure for disease. It's to help your body get healthy. When your body is healthy as it can be, that stuff just can't exist. So, now we talked a little bit about blood vessel condition. Okay, now so let's go to back and hip pain. So what can help with that? Well, for a brief period of time, if you've got extreme back or hip pain, a lot of people have inversion tables or hang upside down. That can help. Usually that is a temporary solution, and as soon as you come out of traction, you have the problem again. But if you've got, say, bad sciatica and you just need a brain break from the, incessant pain, then, inversion tables can really help, or hanging from yoga ropes or things like that can really help. Even yoga inversions can help. But they're not going to be the long-term solution for that. Structural integration, because those really come from musculoskeletal imbalances, structural imbalances. So this is why structural integration can often provide lasting change for this type of situation. And yoga is another thing that can help rebalance the overtension muscles. Foundation training is another great one. Helps to get you to use the posterior chain, which we really don't use. And in many people, it's like it's dead to them, like they're not even aware of it. So foundation training, you can look that up on YouTube. I'll link out to it. Even the most fundamental exercises from foundation training can really, really make a difference. Decompression breathing and the founder being the two that I recommend the most, because I found them to be quite effective. Specialized weight training, movement training, neuromuscular repatterning exercises. So some of those might include Egoscue, which is a fabulous, fabulous repatterning and exercise method. It does take practice and time. Alexander method, where you literally relearn how to walk and sit and stand and all the fundamentals. It really helps free up the body and get you more in touch with your asymmetries and how it's such a wonderful method. That also takes time and effort. It's going to be a little bit of expense. Well worth it in my opinion. Feldenkrais is another one, movement retraining with Feldenkrais. And that's both, you can do mat work, classes, table work. There's a series with Feldenkrais. It's a wonderful, wonderful process. I've been through that as well, and I highly recommend it. Again, get trained and certified practitioners for all of these. Structural performance movement, this is my particular movement method, and movement retraining, strength and conditioning. It's kind of a combination of the focused strength and conditioning, functional movement retraining, and neuromuscular repatterning. Because I've studied all these different things in the past, I've experienced them in my own body, and so I just kind of started to put them together, pick and pull from here and there to find what are the most common things that people have trouble with, and where are they? What are the things that can really help them? This is a little more. The structural performance training method is really a personalized method, just like any of these other ones. Egoscue, you don't go on to YouTube and do an Egoscue exercise. The best way to do it is to go to an Egoscue practitioner or an Alexander practitioner or a Feldenkrais practitioner or structural performance movement practitioner and have a personalized assessment and then a personalized plan where they coach you through this stuff, and the results can be extraordinary. Again, it's a little bit more of an investment monetarily, time-wise, and personally, but long-term, if you're shooting for how can I do what I love to do for the rest of my life? Why then you're planning for your life. This is a lifestyle investment that will pay you dividends for the rest of your life. And you don't have to pay somebody for the rest of your life once you build the skill set, tools, and understanding. So if the back pain is severe, in this case, it's in the low back and hip, it may be related. So you might have lumbar disc compression. And if that's the case, it's not a bad idea, or if you're unsure, it's not a bad idea to get an MRI, lumbar spine MRI, and possibly spinal decompression. And I would say in consort, if it's a bad compression and you're in a lot of pain, then MRI is good for diagnosis. I obviously don't do that. I would send you out to a doctor, whether it's an orthopedist or a sports chiropractor or even a GP who knows a little bit about musculoskeletal. But get an MRI and possibly, based on that, spinal decompression would be the non-surgical kind of step up from exercise, structural integration, those types of things. I will send people out when structural integration is not producing the effect that they need as efficiently as I think it should, based on, if we're not getting the progress that I think we normally should. I'll send people out. Spinal decompression is one of the first places I send them. After that, then, if they're severe, if they're acute, probably they're going to be going to surgery. But most of the time, people can avoid that with disc compression injuries, even herniations, provided they're dealt with in a timely fashion, and also in concert with nutrient, getting the right nutrients and all the other kind of aspects of what I mentioned before, or parts and pieces of that. That's something I can help coach people through. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't treat diseases, but I can help coach people through that process because this is what I do for a living. So if you have a very particular case, feel free to send me a contact form or purchase a consultation from my website. You can do that, and I will do my best for you. Alrighty. So most often, this type of pain is associated with structural imbalance, trauma, and compensatory movement patterns. Now, once in a while, you'll get back pain like this, or even the edema from one traumatic incident, but usually there are chronic patterns of living, there are chronic patterns of injury, there's chronic inflammation in the body, and so if you've had multiple traumas over the years, and then your body's going to compensate for those types of traumas in terms of the way that it moves. So say you hurt your foot, maybe you broke a toe or something, and you limped around for a little while, and during that time that you were limping around, your opposite leg started to accommodate more of your weight and became stronger, and so neurologically you started moving differently. And years later, if that were your only injury, years later, we would typically still see those compensations in your movement. You'd come into my office and walk around, and I'd say, wow, you look like you're limping still. And it might be so slight that other people might not notice, but I have a trained eye. So imagine the musculoskeletal imbalance that you then have if you're now training on top of that. So no wonder you're going to produce either overuse injuries or injuries from muscle and tissue and tensional imbalances in your body from that. So hopefully this has been of use to you. And like I said, keep sending the questions in. They come up, and I want to answer them. I would highly encourage you to go through the show notes and go through some of the resources that are there. Again, if there are things that I have not linked out to that you'd like to see, shoot me a note. I'm happy to do that. I'm here to serve, and I'm all about helping you out. So, closing out today's Structural Performance podcast, and I want to thank you for joining me and look forward to seeing you next time. All the best.